This is the welder that started my whole company. It's the Power Mig 211i. It's a phenomenal unit. I've put I don't know how many hundreds of pounds of wire through this thing. I got really tired of changing spools before I got a bigger machine because you have to run the smaller ones. You can't run a full 44 pounder. But that's okay, it works out fine. You end up paying a little more for wire, but whatever. When you're starting a company, this is the way it goes. It's paid for the bigger unit, helped me get the bigger unit, and since then I've gotten some bigger welders, but I still end up pulling this thing out all the time because it's just so handy. It works in the field. It's a 110 or a 220 unit. It behaves just like any other 110 unit, and on 220 you get pretty decent heat out of it, but it's not as hot as some. We'll put together some test coupons here and you can have a look at the weld beads that it puts down. I picked up this little adapter unit on Amazon for like 20 bucks and I can plug it into my Bobcat or some other outlet. It's really nice to have a selection of outlets if you end up going in the field or whatever, but 220 off the Bobcat's pretty nice. It doesn't trip the Bobcat breaker or anything, it just works fine, and I typically am only using it for lower heat in the field because I can just run dual shield or stick off of the Bobcat just great and get tons of heat. So typically I'm turning it down when I'm running this machine anyways. I've put hundreds of pounds of wire through it. I don't even know how many pounds of wire I've put through it. I know it's in the 400 plus range, which is great. I've had it for just about 2 years. I got it about 2 years ago and it's been excellent. I have had to send it in for repair once. I melted the gun. This gun's not really high on the duty cycle, but the machine isn't really high on the duty cycle, so it doesn't really matter. But because it was the only machine I had when I started the whole company, it was doing everything. And on flux core and whatnot, you can get quite a bit of heat out of this. On 035, I typically keep it to 1/8 inch 3/16 material for the top end. It'll do quarter, but it doesn't quite, the puddle doesn't flow as nice as I would like it to, and you can turn it up, to like 27 volts or something, but it doesn't feel like it's really giving it to me, and I don't have a great way of measuring. But if you're going over 1/4 inch anyways with 035 hardwire, it's really not ideal, and you're not going to be able to get into a spray pattern on this if you want to spray transfer. I haven't spray transferred with it. I don't think it would do it, and it would melt to everything. So if you want to go on to 3/8 or whatnot, you really want to start running some flux core wire, or just get a bigger machine, run some dual shield, burn some rods. If you had the multi-process, you could burn some rods, but I didn't get that one because I was planning to get a bigger machine in the future, and I knew that this wire feeder was probably going to make me enough money to get that bigger machine, and it did, and I got a multi-process, and I burn rods with it all the time, and it's fantastic. And I never really felt like I was missing all that much just getting the wire feeder. If you're starting a company, I would totally recommend going the exact same route that I did. Save a little bit of money and put it towards other stuff. It really wouldn't have been worth it. And lift arc TIG it's lift arc TIG. I mean, you can't really do stainless with it that good because you've always got a slightly polluted tungsten. You can't do aluminum at all because you don't have high frequency. And even on steel, you've still got a marginally polluted tungsten. And I don't love it because there's no high freq, and I really like high freq. So I was perfectly happy to just get the I. If you're looking at the MPI, this review is still going to be totally relevant because 90% of the time you're probably just going to be using the wire feed anyways. But for a garage guy, you might want to get that MPI just so you have the opportunity to burn some rods. And if you're not planning to get, say, a nice millermatic 255 or something like that in the future as an upgrade, and you want to just get a machine to do some hobby work and whatnot, I would totally go the MPI route. But if you just want to stair step your way and you're starting a business and you're planning to get some really awesome tools later, just get the wire feeder, save a couple of bucks, get some extra grinders or whatever you might need. I usually just run 75-25 gas on it. I have used this for stainless a fair bit, wire feeding stainless. It wire feeds the stainless really well. I mean, obviously you're going to tap out on heat before you get into very thick material, but what I have done, it's worked extremely well. I'm going to try and mix gas on it, just run the wire through it. I put a bigger ground clamp on it. Well, actually I didn't put a bigger ground clamp on it. I put a bigger ground cable on it because the cable was just getting insanely hot. And I melted the gun, so obviously I was pushing it, but it's been great. I would probably do the bigger cable, but I don't know, it's been a great machine. We'll put down a couple of test beads here in a minute. Just one more thing, I like to keep all my tips and drive rolls and everything in one of these little nifty pack out boxes and put little labels on it with the label maker. It's really slick, totally would recommend doing that. Oh, this is not a power efficient machine. This machine uses a lot of power. It has an always-on fan, and the fan actually uses a noticeable amount of power when you're running it flat out in the shop. When I got the bigger machine, the 255, I was burning hotter, I was running more amps, and my power bill was less because the efficiency of some of the other units is just way better. This is not a very efficient unit, which probably doesn't matter for most people that will be looking at buying it, but it is not a very efficient unit. The other problem I had when I put just a gazillion pounds of wire through it is the drive rolls kind of unaligned, and they're not alignable drive rolls. These aren't lined up very good anymore, and when I got the machine they were lined up really nicely, but I've just put so much wire through it that it's actually constantly shoving it into this thing now, and you can actually see there's some buildup from the outside of the wire. There's some buildup from the outside of the wire running across it, and the only way to fix that I know of is to just replace this unit. So I haven't done it because I don't use the machine enough, but I think there's some bearings or something in there that wore, and unlike a lot of the higher end machines, you can't side shift this. Whereas with my 255 or something, I can just align the drive rolls manually. You can't realign these, and mine are unaligned, which is not ideal, and it causes a lot of extra pollution to go into the liner and whatnot, and outside of replacing this unit, I haven't found anything that I can do about that. However, if you have solved that problem, please comment, because I would like to solve that problem, but I wouldn't really like to buy a whole new unit because I just don't use the machine enough to make it worth it at the moment. The other downside to the always-on fan is it's actually quite loud. However, yeah, it doesn't really matter, it's just a little thing. So the auto set on this machine actually does work. You just select the wire size, the process, and then the material thickness, and you can see it taps out though through 5 hard wire at 5/16, but I'd say it kind of starts to tap at around 3/16, but you can just manually geek and tweak it any way you want. However, for the first test, I'm going to put 3/16, and I'm just going to use this factory 18 and 188 and 8. You can see right there, worked out pretty good. It really went into the 1/8 nicely, but it's a little cold on the 3/16 side. Typically, I turn it up a little higher than the recommended setting because it seems a little cold. However, it does work, and if you're just learning and you take this machine out of the box and you do that, you should be fairly happy with yourself. Again, I think it's a little cool, and for 1/8 material, that 3/16 setting actually typically works out pretty well. 11 gauge rectangle tube here, and put it on this 1/4" base plate. It would be a fairly common situation if you were, say, building a handrail or something. If I was building a handrail with this machine now, I'd probably make all my base plates out of 3/16s. Just be sure this seems to burn it a little better. When I'm actually welding it, I'm really trying to lean on that 1/4 inch. And this one worked out fairly well. I mean, I'd say that's pretty good. Again, you can see there's just an absolutely microscopic amount of cold lapping. As you can see, there's just a microscopic bit of cold lapping right there. That even show up on the VWAG, but it's fairly good. It turned out good. This thing really shines on sheet metal with some 025 or something. I really like using it for that. Exhaust work, the nice little MIG gun is super handy. I just don't have any of that to show you at the moment. Especially under a vehicle, working on the exhaust on my pickup or whatever, it's super handy. This one, I really wanted to do this test because the geometry on this is really interesting. He's going to put this really thin layer right here, whereas you've got just a typical corner joint, and then actually reach under and fill in a groove. So this is going to be a nice little coupon for this machine. I'm going to turn it, turn it to 3/16 and just give it a little bit more of on the voltage, I'm going to cut 18.6, and then 289. Let's try that. That seemed to lay in there pretty good. We should flatten out just a little bit more. Let's try and hit the other side. We should set it just a little bit to get that bead profile and flatten out just a little bit. Pull a couple inches a minute out of there. And add about a tenth of volt. Let's see if that'll do it. Might not do it. We'll know soon. Still a pretty pronounced profile there. Still not a bad weld, but a little pronounced on the bead profile. That actually kind of did what I wanted it to. Nice, different joint geometry, but that's pretty much exactly what I was hoping for right there. This is one of my favorite joint geometries here just because it's kind of hard to get right. You've got this part that's really thin towards the end, but you still have to burn into it at least. Well, this part's getting really hot, so that may have helped bead profile there. So the last setting I was running was 286 and 19.1. We're going to peel it down just a little bit here. You go to 282 and 18.6. Let's see if I can get this unique geometry here right. So, I didn't flip the wire before I started. You probably heard that little. And you can actually see it. You can see it right there. And that will happen virtually every single time you don't flip the wire first and get a nice clean end. It's so picky, I like to put a little bit of an angle on it just to get that arc start right, because it does not arc start good. That is one of the biggest downsides to this machine. It's right there. However, yeah, it turned out pretty good. I could watch it melt in there, got nice fusion on everything. Not bad. So at the end of the day, I'd give this machine like 10 out of 10, honestly. This is a 10 out of 10 machine. It's got a couple of minor downsides. At the price point, they're very negligible. This is a really reliable machine. There's a couple of little nuances about it. It's loud, it uses a lot of power, and you get that super bad at the beginning of every arc strike if you don't cut it every time. Get a pair of Welders and some earplugs. You're gonna be fine. Get over it. It's not that big of a deal. This is a really excellent machine, especially at the price point. I mean, really all you've got to compare it to is the Everlast and the Harbor Freight and such things. And if you have a red dealer nearby, this is great. You got parts right down the street. It's excellent. You can get service at all kinds of service centers for this machine. If your geography favors red, this is the machine to buy. If you're looking for a machine at this price point for this use case, you can't beat it. This is a really top-notch machine.